It was once an African-American community, Seneca Village, and now there's an ancient African monument. There's an obelisk in Central Park right now that's from ancient Africa, from ancient Kemet, and a lot of people don't even realize it's there.
A lot of people think that the enslavement of African people was only down south. That's not true. The largest plantation in the 13 colonies at one point in history was in Brooklyn, New York. And you know that area down there, down by Battery Park, where they used to bring the ships into that area, the port. And they would dock the ships, and they would bring the Africans up out the ships, and they would walk them across to be sold. However, what they did was, because they couldn't sell all of them, they used to put them in different prisons along this particular path. And then they would march the Africans that they were ready to sell down the street called Wall Street, down into a place we today call the New York Stock Exchange. African people were the first stocks and bonds sold on the stock exchange. There's a movie by Bruce Willis that will show you the prisons that are underground the stock exchange building.
Wiley Jones was a former African-American slave who went into Arkansas. He stacked his money up and he became a railroad owner. He owned a railroad system, and the city of Pine Bluff, Arkansas ended up buying his railroad system, and that system is still owned by Pine Bluff right now. Patterson Car Company was a car company founded by former slaves, African-American men, and the Patterson Car Company was the first African-American car manufacturer in the country, I think the only manufacturer in the country. And what's interesting about the Patterson Car Company, it was in Ohio. Their cars were considered higher quality than the Model T cars that Henry Ford had.
The DeRay brothers, Ford and Stone. That's why all over the world, Ford never gets credit for inventing a car. He gets credit for mass production.
The cars began coming off the assembly line at the rate of one every 40 seconds.
Until that, they take one car and put it together. But where did he get that from? George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver was never around black folks till he went to Tuskegee. His mother and father died or was killed. A white family adopted him from Iowa. You know, black folks in Iowa, except football players. So we went to grade school, high school, and they didn't have no secondary school. They didn't have enough people. And so now George Washington Carver leaves after he gets all his education out there. He goes to Tuskegee. Henry Ford came down to visit, like he always used to see his friend. He said, Mr. Ford, I got something here. Study plants. So if you take this back and give it to your engineers, they can build more than one car at a time. He took it back. Mass production all over the world is called the plant, right?
Everybody made joke of him because they said, well, you know, what, plants are talking to him? You know, is this how he's getting these properties of these plants? And George Washington Carver, in his quiet, dignified way, said, well, who taught me? I'm not saying that they talk to me like they got a tongue, but I can look at a plant and see what it can do for the human family.
The military came to George Washington Carver. They said, we need you to do something for us. Can you invent something that out of it we can get paint, glue, ink, and plastic? Yeah, I can handle it. Tell me how smart black folk are. Yeah, I can handle it. So he came back called soybean. Now you're going to hear something about it. The #1 cancer group in America is vegetarians. So you weren't supposed to eat soy. When he got to Tuskegee, they thought he was gay. No association with women, high pitched voice, they thought he was gay.
The finest juice we've been able to make of peanuts is in the treatment of the after effects of infantile paralysis.
And his brother, for you to believe he was gay, and tell you that the white folks got a doctor and castrated him so he couldn't have sex with their daughter. Now, who wanted it? Huh? You see King Kong, New York City, Empire State Building? That's about Jack Johnson and the white ladies. Why would the gorilla go to New York? They ain't got no bananas, Lord, no ain't no trees. Why did they go there? The boxing capital of the world is Madison Square Garden. If you don't know how to break it down, Also controlling the pace of the fight.
We have to understand that in our celebration of Jack Johnson and that one-on-one, mano-a-mano, man, this is you and me, and this is what we're going to deal with. There were lynchings the day after every fight. And that's very important to understand as it relates to the psychology. He used to love to drive. He used to love to speed. And he'd be speeding someplace, and the police would stop him. And because they saw that he was a person of African descent, because they saw the car that he was driving, some may have known who he was, but they said, well, what is this man doing with this car? They would fine him. They say, okay, we're going to give you a ticket for speeding. Here's $500 ticket. $500 for speeding back then? Story has it, he'd give him $1,000. He said, because I'm speeding back.
In the sport of boxing, there has always been a need for the great white hope in boxing. Since there could not be one in real life, Hollywood just created one, and that's what the Rocky movies were about.
They were giving out the awards, and Rocky won, okay, the Oscar. And Muhammad Ali came out, and he was the one that gave Sylvester Stallone the award.
Right. Can't you feel working? The real Apollo Creed. You stole my script.
And Ali, in his most powerful way, came out and said, you know that story was about me. He said, you know that was about me. You know that y'all dream about beating a black man. He said, but you know what? The only place you'll ever do is in Hollywood.